Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, good morning. On behalf of the course, can the overseas officers and I just express our appreciation for inviting us here. It's a real privilege to be here in Hong Kong and to have the opportunity to come and speak to you all about youth policing in our various contexts. I work with an Operation Sapphire, which is the name of our rape investigation command in London. We have about 470 staff, and we deal with all allegations of rape and serious sexual violence within the capital. And my role covers the issues of intelligence, manhunt operations, cold case investigation, community engagement, but also partnership. But not just about youth, I want to talk about London as well, and the context in which we undertake community policing. Because London has a very rich history of things that have gone well and not gone so well. And it's the things that have not gone so well for us over the years where we have learned so much as an organisation and developed our practices. So what is community policing? Well, you'll probably hear 4 different perspectives on community policing this morning. And for us, very much it's about local problem solving, local police. I suppose that must be the same probably all over the world. You can't obtain confidence locally if the people in your city or in London have confidence in the police as a whole. But there are a variety of factors really which impact on whether those people can do a good job, whether they can obtain the confidence of local people to provide solutions to youth problems, which we have a significant issue, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But in terms of antisocial behaviour, youth crime, all sorts of initiatives across burglary and robbery. These issues are impacted on by the bigger events, and I'll come on to some of those now. Probably everybody's aware of the London riots. The London riots had a huge impact within the UK. If you think about the London riots and how it actually started from an operation within the Specialist Crime Directorate, where a proactive operation was running against a man who was off to do a shooting. And a covert operation was running around that man, and he was stopped in Tottenham. And he was shot whilst the police were trying to intervene on the car that he was in with a couple of other people. It's that event which was the catalyst to the London riots. And for us, but that's not new. We think back to the Brixton riots in the 1980s, which had a huge impact on how we decide how to police local communities through stop and search. It was actually that tension that we're creating through stopping and searching young people constantly, allegations of racism. And it was sparked by a shooting on a raid on a particular house of a black woman that created that spark again. There's often that tension within London that lies within certain communities that when we undertake major policing operations. Counter-terrorism, bottom right, that's a surveillance picture from an operation called Operation Airlines, which I was on back in the mid-1990s. Provisional IRA sent over a major active service unit. What they were going to do was blow up all the power station feeders into London, and it was going to wipe out most of the electricity in London. That went really well for us. They all went to prison. And the operation afterwards, when they tried to put a huge lorry bomb in central London again, they all went to prison. One of them was shot dead by our team. But that was a good time for us. Community confidence in what we were doing around counter-terrorism was very, very high. If you look at the recent years, the suicide bombings in London, the events of 7/7 when we shot dead John Charles Menendez on a tube train, an innocent man who we thought was a suicide bomber, that had a huge impact. Huge impact across Islamic communities in London, and the approach that we were able to take locally with those communities. It was very, very difficult. And yet again, the big approach we took, and the big responses we took, and how that impacted locally was devastating for our approach at the time. We had to really review how we were managing local policing, especially in Islamic communities. And the top one is probably the biggest catalyst for community policing for us was an inquiry called the Stephen Lawrence Inquiry. It was a public inquiry into how the Metropolitan Police dealt with people within the black community, especially young people. 1993, a young man called Stephen Lawrence was at a bus stop in southeast London, and he was stabbed and killed by a group of white racist thugs. Completely unprovoked attack. The police response to that murder investigation was not a good one. And the tension around that inquiry and the failed prosecution was so bad for us that actually a public inquiry was started into how the Metropolitan Police as a whole dealt with young people within the black community, and completely changed, revolutionised how we deal with young people in London. Not only did we re-look at how we deal with murder investigation by introducing family liaison officers and other such techniques, but it also brought into question about how do we view people. And in fact, the commissioner at the time, at the end of this inquiry, got on television and admitted to owning an institutionally racist police force. And this had huge impact on how we deal with the black community within London, and changed a great deal about the organisation. This is the father of a man called Everin O'Neill, and this is his look at, first of all, the general picture of young people in London. Last year, the last financial year, we had almost 7,000 victims of youth violence, of which 5,000 were knife-enabled. 18% of our gun-enabled crime victims are young people, and we had 1,500 of those last year. But it's twice as many as suspects, over 3,000 gun crimes last year, where young people aged 10 to 19 were suspects. And it kind of gets quite ridiculous when you find yourself undertaking firearms operations on people who are like 14. My son is 14. I can't get my head around it sometimes, but this is the context in which some of these people, you see bottom right, this is the context of so many young people now in London within the gang culture. It's not endemic, it's not everywhere, but it is not by any means rare. 16 homicide victims of young people last year, and I would say that if it wasn't for the advances in medical science, those numbers would be much bigger. We had 190 murder victims last year in London, and it's dropping every year. And I don't think it's due to safety, I think it's due to the medical profession. You have people going to hospital with 16 chest stab wounds and they don't die. They're out of hospital in 5 days' time. It's absolutely incredible what medical science is doing, and the response that we certainly get in London around trauma care. This is my area, rape investigation. This is all we deal with. But you can see that under 19-year-olds, young people, over 1,100 offences they were victims of. Now that doesn't include familial offences, so child abuse in the home by parents, it doesn't include that. This is just people who don't know each other. So the issue we have around rape investigation is quite significant. A quarter of our rape suspects are all young people. We have problems now with rape as a weapon. Gang members rape each other's girlfriends or friends as a weapon. These are all the sort of issues that we are dealing with and we're finding ourselves having to contend with for young people within our command. And certainly within my side of the command, we try and ask ourselves, how do we do that? How do we, on a local level, deal with these kind of issues and try and help people out of that context? And that's what I want to talk about. And the Havens is a joint police National Health Service partnership where we have 3 centres within London that are open 24 hours a day, staffed by doctors, nurses, counsellors, young people workers and managers. And probably have about 170 staff in all who are trained within those venues. And the Havens provide us, the police, and the victims with the forensic medical and sexual health outcomes that they need to recover from being raped. It's a unique partnership because we pay for it 50-50. So we pay £2.5 million a year, the National Health Service pays £2.5 million a year, and I chair the strategic board which oversees the delivery of that service. And within that service, we look to young people and say, well, what is it about young people that's so unique? And how can we help them? We have a specific program looking at educating and engaging with young people to try and help them within certain social settings understand that over-sexualized behaviour is not healthy. And hopefully by doing that, we can influence their behaviours and coach them away from those kind of situations they may find themselves in, where they may end up as a victim of rape. One of the key things is an initiative which is done with some universities called the Growing Against Gangs and Violence program. What that is that's a program of education within schools targeting very difficult areas within London, whereby academics, police officers and some of my staff who are specialists around sexual offending go into the schools and they hold programs with young people explaining the issue of choice and help them make their choices about drugs, about sex, about gangs, about knives, all these issues that are so common in London. And try and help them understand that with the hope that they will make a choice and step away from that. So the Growing Against Gangs and Violence program seeks to achieve some of that. We've trained over 3,000 children last year in the classroom setting to try and do that, and it's been reasonably successful. It's difficult to know how well that works for us, but even if we get a small number of people diverted from that level of activity, then that for us is a win. So that's what we're doing about young people, local engagement within Operation Sapphire. There's so much more that is going on within the teams, within other settings, within other partner agencies like Rape Crisis, for instance. There's all sorts of work that I don't have time to go into today. But I want to show you one video in the last 5 minutes, because this is a video that's won quite a few global awards, and it's a video that we have rolled out within all further education colleges in London as part of the Havens group. It's on YouTube. You can see it on there. It's had over 70,000 viewings, and it's been very successful in raising the issue of consent, about understanding when you can say no, understanding for young girls when you can say no, I don't want to do that, and understanding for men is to say perhaps that's not appropriate. So that's a big initiative that we're running within the Havens, within our communication groups across all further education colleges in London, just trying to really engage with young people and not tell them what's right or wrong. It's not for me to tell people what's right or wrong. It's about trying to educate young people, trying to understand the issues of consent around sexual assault, and trying to promote the Havens as an independent organisation that supports young people and adults around sexual offences, and try and develop that social debate around maybe what's right, what's wrong, and the situations you want to put yourself in or not. So, in conclusion, I would just like to say the way I deal with this within my command is try to tell people always that the big picture is as important as the small picture. What we do in the Specialist Crime Directorate across the whole of London can impact massively on local confidence. When it's on the front of the headlines that we've done something wrong, that impacts on everybody who reads that paper across all of our media. So we always try and get the big picture right, as well as do things like this, which engage with people locally to try and reach our objectives through different forms of engagement.